I want to talk about a moment from the video game Mother 3. For those who aren't familiar, Mother 3 is a Japanese RPG produced by Nintendo and released for the Game Boy Advance in 2006. It's the sequel to Earthbound, or Mother 2, and it shares that game's simple visual style, absurd humor, and modern setting. It was never released outside of Japan, and because Nintendo is a very litigious company, let's say that I'm playing this translated version through magic. Anyway, the scene I want to talk about happens towards the beginning of the game. Spoiler warning for the first chapter. I gotta build up the moment a bit, so bear with me as I recap. When you boot up the game, you get this little summary of the main cast. You can even name them, though for simplicity I just chose the default option. There's Lucas, the soft boy, Claus, his more adventurous brother, Flint, his strong, kind, dependable father, and Hinawa, his beloved mother. Oh, of course, Boney. They're a picture-perfect family. I mean, they're literally posing for a picture who love omelets and love. It's really cute. Next, we get a tutorial that establishes the world of Mother 3. You move Lucas around, get dressed, talk to animals, use a frog to save your progress, and play fight with a dinosaur. It all sets the tone for your adventure. This is a silly game that doesn't take itself too seriously. But then something unexpected happens. See, Hinawa and her children are coming home that night, so she writes a letter to her husband, Flint. The letter feels like it's from a different game. It's beautiful and sincere, nothing like the goofy meta humor we've seen so far. And most strangely of all, it's unskippable. You have to watch every piece of the slow, deliberate cutscene. A feeling of foreboding kicks in. Didn't Alex say something a bit ominous earlier? I mean, you've seen the movie before, you know where this is heading. But whatever imminent doom is waiting for us can't be that bad, right? I mean, I just talked to a chicken. I'm sure everything will be fine, I say to myself as the music distorts and a UFO flies overhead. Soon, pig-faced aliens land in the small town and set the forests on fire. We're now playing as Flint, the husband Hinawa was writing a letter for. He looks like a sheriff with his cowboy outfit. It's, like everything else, very silly. Flint, in keeping with JRPG tradition, is a silent protagonist, only making the necessary yes or no statements needed to move the story forward. Lucas was the same way. They're vessels for the player to experience the game. Not that the limited visual style of Mother 3 would allow them to really express themselves if they wanted to. Anyway, you hear the siren and rush over to help. The townspeople, though panicking, are as eccentric as everything else you've experienced. It's an absolute joy to talk to everyone. You could even ask the sparrow for gameplay tips. There's so much fun packed into every moment. I mean, just look at this guy ringing the bell. He's so big he can't even hear you. After some map navigating and wild animal fighting, you save the villagers from the horrible fire just in time. Then it starts to rain. Hey, things are working out. The rain is still pouring down. You rush home, but your family isn't there. Instead, you find the letter Hinawa wrote earlier. Flint reads it, and you watch the same unskippable cutscene from before. The tension is as thick as a fog. Everyone is too positive, too optimistic, too reassuring. Of course something's happened to your family. The question is, how bad is it? Did the game really kill off Hinawa? Or worse, your sons? After a few tough battles, you finally find Lucas and Claus. They're okay. Scared, but okay. Maybe, just this once, all that foreshadowing was just a red herring. Maybe everything is going to be okay. And then it happens. A man shows up. He says he has good news and bad news. Probably the worst way in history to give bad news. He tells you the good news first. He found a dinosaur tooth that can be upgraded into a weapon. That's good news for me, the player. The bad news is where he found the tooth. It was lodged into your wife's heart. I remember feeling pretty bad when I first got to this part of the game. It was inevitable, obviously. The game was practically screaming that this was gonna happen. Still, I'm a softie, and I always want to see characters live, especially the ones I like. Plus, women are killed off so often, and gosh, here's just another example of fridging in mainstream media, and Wait, why can't I control Flint anymore? There's a decorum in mainstream media that goes unspoken. You might call them tropes or cliches, but I think of them more as manners. When a hero's loved ones die in a story, we have an expectation of how they're going to react. Usually it involves crying, maybe mourning, followed by looking out into the sunset while your best friend explains that, gosh, life is still worth living, man. Now let's go buy some potions and weapons. This is a power fantasy. It's presenting us at our best even when we're at our lowest point. Who wouldn't want to be that cool gunslinger who covers his face with his hat and rides off? After all, isn't tragedy supposed to be a moment for growth? Death is just another stepping stone in fulfilling the potential of the protagonist. I don't think tragedy has ever made me stronger. It mostly just gave me trauma. That's why I escape into video games. Everything there can be solved with fighting or talking or jumping or puzzling. Tragedy may destroy me in the real world, but here in Gameland you can literally punch your way out of depression. What Flint does here is perverse. This isn't heroic, this is ugly. He strikes at his friends like a wild animal. They beg him to stop. Even his own children, staring in disbelief, are not enough to sway him. The only thing that works is a swing to the head. More violence to stop the violence. There is nothing to be proud of here. Not in what Flint does and not in what has to be done to stop him. Everyone will remember this moment for the rest of their lives. There is no lesson, no bright side. This is sad. This is traumatic. I don't think I've ever seen anything so shocking in a video game before. I felt like a voyeur gazing through a window at a private moment I was never meant to witness. It's pornographic in its invasiveness. Games remind you that you're playing a game all the time, but what Mother 3 does is more horrifying than any fourth wall break. It reminds you that your playable character is a person. This whole time I was controlling a man with personality, emotions, history, but I didn't take him seriously. And why would I? He's a silent player character in a cowboy hat. Why not take my time, talk to townsfolk, search for treasure chests, and level up? Whatever happens is going to happen no matter what. Even the lead up to this moment is goofy. There's all these jokes and all these funny faces. I mean, Flint himself has this smile that never changes. People don't emote in a Mother game, remember? They're too stylized. And this is a self-aware video game. When we find out that Hinawa is dead, it's through the acquisition of an item, the most gamey thing that can happen. It's so tone-deaf, it's kind of hysterical. Maybe Flint also realized he was in a video game. Maybe that's why he did what he did. I don't know his mind. My guess is Flint reached the limits of his control. He became aware of what he could and could not do. He could not save his wife. He couldn't even speak. After all, he's a silent protagonist. What do you do when you're forced to be quiet? You rage. You act. Flint has no mouth, so he screams with every other part of his body. Violence is the language of the unheard. If no one will listen to you, how else are you supposed to get their attention? This is why Mother 3 is so brilliant. In this moment of great loss, Flint becomes real. Sure, he's still just a bunch of pixels written by people, but for a few seconds he is no longer our puppet. He has wrestled control from us, the player, because he cannot be passive here. Not now. His violence against his friends may not be what we would have chosen, but for Flint, in this moment, there is no other option. He will be heard whether we like it or not. And how can I judge him? Because he didn't do what the cool, tough protagonist is supposed to do? Because I didn't get a say in how he handled it? What gives me the right to tell Flint how he should react to losing the love of his life? What monster would I be if I told him he was grieving wrong? What do I even know about him? That he's a strong, kind, dependable father? That's not a person, that's what you write on a gravestone. People are not summaries, we are not easy to explain, we are not written. And I I didn't think about any of that. I was just playing a video game. I never once considered Flint a person. He's just a guy I get to move around and have fun with. He's not real. Now I'm thinking about him like he is. That he isn't just some programmer's ones and zeros. And I'm asking myself why he swung a burning log at his friends. I'm asking... In my deepest fears, I am Flint. And I know deep down that I agree with his actions. I'm also angry. Angry that the inevitable happened. That the woman I named at the beginning of the game, the woman who wrote the letter the game made me sit through twice, would die so needlessly. That this goofy game would pretend that everything was going to be all right. No, I reject that. This is not okay, and you all need to stop saying that it is. I haven't played much beyond this part, so I don't know if this moment gets retconned or if Hinawa suddenly comes back to life. I don't know what the end of Flint's arc is or if he even gets one. But it still wouldn't change what I feel and what Flint feels right now. Right here. I have another theory about this scene. Maybe Flint didn't wrestle control away from me so he could speak for himself. Maybe Mother 3 wasn't asking me to consider Flint as a real person. Maybe the game knew what I wanted to do, but also knew I would never act on it. Maybe Flint did exactly what I told him to do.